You're listening to HowStreet.com radio, available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Welcome to HowStreet.com radio, the online source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is financial consultant and wealth manager Richard Knowles of Knowles & Associates in Vancouver. Happy New Year's, Richard.
Happy New Year to you, Jim.
And our topic today is going to be how to have a happy new year financially. Things that you can do to make yourself richer a year from now. Richard, first of all, we're going to start off with a CIBC survey. For the 5th year in a row, that survey has found Canadians say paying down debt is their number one financial goal of the year. 22% of respondents said that. Is this a good idea?
Oh, yeah, I think that's a great idea. It's one of the number one ideas when we're looking at budget planning for our clients, when I meet and when we meet with our clients. It's definitely on the high list. You want to restructure debt. That's another big issue, is getting down your interest rates. In other words, just getting off of one of the high-paying debt cards that you might have and perhaps restructuring it easily with your bank. Your bank will be, if they are willing to accept that debt, pay them off. It's much better to do it that way at, say, 3% rather than at 20% if you feel uncomfortable with that high rate, as you should. But ultimately, once you've got everything restructured, then paying it down it's just a really handy way to get it down faster. And if you focus on those small and important things as part of your financial plan, then money gets freed up for other things. That's the key, is in you're not wasting money where you don't have to. And that's a great way to, it's the basis of most financial plans. It's a great way to save money.
The next highest financial priority for Canadians, 12% saying they would like to save more than they have in the past year.
Yeah, it's almost a corollary. As soon as you start to free up money, what are you going to do with it? And the choices could be going out and spending, of course, going on a trip, etc. But I think it's great to see those two hand in hand, because if the first number one priority is to save more by restructuring your debt or reducing your debt, that usually frees up money to be able to do something else. And the next step is to save more. That will put it back into the savings and investments. And that will also help to support markets and economies around the world.
10% say paying their bills on time is their financial priority.
Yeah, that's a really smart way. It actually falls under number one, where you're really handling debt. I think number one is really, while paying down debt might have been the wording of the survey, it really all falls under the umbrella of managing debt better. And I like to see this because anyone that has debt understands this, and anyone that's fearful of debt probably is afraid of this as well, which is that it just gets out of hand. The interest rates, depending on the cards you use, they get out of hand. Some of the greatest stresses we see with individual clients will be handling their debt. You know, what's been going on, how much money are they wasting, even if they're successful. Often, they haven't got a hold on how their debts has been structured, their lines of credits, their mortgages, etc. And just doing a proper rate comparison, getting things under control, getting off credit card debt, shifting things around properly is a great way to restructure your whole life. One, it reduces your stress, for sure. It can save a lot more money. In other words, it frees up cash flow. And by doing that, not just paying it, to whomever, like some Visa or MasterCard, I'm not going to blame on any of the big cards, although I think they all work in tandem at too high a rate. The fact of the matter is that until that gets legislated down, if ever, the reality is we have to legislate ourselves. We have to make more sense of our own decisions. And the only way you can vote today, the best vote you have, is to vote with your dollar. And that's where you want to be very careful with your debt structuring. I think it's fantastic to see that, Kevin.
9% of Canadians say managing their day-to-day spending is their financial priority. All these things are hooked together, aren't they, Richard?
They are very closely hooked together, and that's good, because there are other things on that list that we're not going to talk about. These are the top five, which comprise probably about 50% of the people in Canada at this time, at least on the survey. And this shows that the vast majority of people are about making common sense decisions and becoming more knowledgeable in general about their financial affairs and particularly their debts and the restructuring of debt, etc. This is extremely applaudable. It means that people are not running out of control. When you looked at the United States, for example, when the big banking crisis hit 2008, people, including, by the way, the banks themselves, had been running out of control. They were literally like crazy stallions running on with a stagecoach without a handler. It was quite mad. when you look back on it in hindsight, it looked quite insane. You know, people were selling things that were garbage loans. They were manufactured. They were lying. The major financial investment banks were literally lying to their own customers, the other banks, that were then unwittingly selling these fake mortgages, if you will, to hapless and innocent consumers. This was an absolute insane place to be in 2007, 2008. And when you have a structured economy such as Canada with good common sense decisions, getting back to practical alternatives to solve issues in their lives, then we have control over our system, and the individual controls of the people that put it together seem to be very much more common sense. And that shows a great credit to Canadians in general and to Canada.
When we come back from the break, Richard will have more on how you can do things in the new year to make yourself richer than you are today.
More and more people are looking to the internet for intelligent, riveting, and thought-provoking interviews. To advertise on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com, call 604-699-8600, 604-699-8600.
Welcome back. We're speaking to financial consultant Richard Knowles. Richard, thanks to the Financial Post, some suggestions on how you can become a richer person in the new year. The first one that they mentioned was become more financially aware of where your money is going and cut your spending by 10%.
Yeah, this falls under financial education, and I really applaud that. I've been doing that since I entered the industry over 25 years ago. One of the great leaders in the industry, funnily enough, was a Canadian company by the name of Laurentian Bank. And of course, they're still around. But at that time, they had an offshoot called Laurentian Financial Services. And I don't want to digress too long, but one of the issues that I thought was extremely advanced for its time, this is long before the major banks got into all of this financial education and brokerage. I mean, they were really outside of it until about 1993. When the charter banks in Canada entered the marketplace of mutual funds and all that. There was a couple out there, but really the biggest educational area was under Laurentian Bank with Laurentian Financial Services that have been running their business since the mid to late 70s. So this is actually really quite phenomenal when you think about it. You've got an organization that was doing financial education long before it was vogue to do it. And this is where I got my training ground. So all my clients are very well educated in budget planning, how to defer taxes, the kinds of investments you can get into. And we even hand out small booklets and brochures on these topics. And this gives our clients and people like that are interested in learning more a really tangible way of controlling both their investments and their own future. In other words, become the CEO or CFO of your own organization, your family, or your business, and to make appropriate decisions, maybe not be the full educational source for these decisions, but know enough to ask the right question so that when you sit down with someone like me, we are much more effective together as a team to be able to solve all your issues if we are working truly together. But if it's literally, when I meet someone that literally doesn't want to know anything about their money, has no interest in investments, doesn't understand numbers, and they dump it all on me to do, not that I can't do that, but I find it is less effective in getting the results that I believe they should get because they're just not interested. I might call up a client saying, "Look, I think you should restructure your tax. I was looking at this. We hadn't talked for a while. I was looking over some of the tax issues on this, business or whatever you're doing in investment. I'd like to restructure this with another type of investment to get you tax-free income." And they're going to go, "Yeah, we'll talk about that in a couple of months. When I'm more freed up and I have interest." But this is something that if they did it right away, they would save money immediately if they had an interest in learning more about it. And this is the kind of catch-22 of my industry and being an advisor in general. If you find that the person you're advising is not interested in talking about the topic, you're going to have a very difficult time in getting them up and running. So I think I'm very, very happy to see this. This is one of the best news I've heard all year, that Canadians are more and more involved with their both investments and their financial issues.
Another wealth tip given to us by the Financial Post: make your investments, quote, boring. Does that work?
I don't know that I completely agree with this one. I've seen this before. It does work, and it has been working for a long time. If you look at it as a conservative sort of investor, if you don't know much about it and you stick with the boring stuff like the I won't get into exact names, but let's just call them the old grandmother blue chip stocks, as they used to call them, the IBMs of the world, if you like. And you just hang on to these and get dividends paid, and you just hang on and hang on. That seems to be it's the new old age thinking. So it's coming back into vogue. It's the way people used to invest back in the 50s and 60s. Don't worry, just buy this and forget about it. And so long-term investing, if you like. And buy boring things that pay lots of dividends, and, you don't have to have any fancy-dancy, kind of new technology going on. On the one hand, that works. If you look at Warren Buffett approach, that has worked tremendously well. Be boring. Find the things in your house, the names that you know. And then on the flip side to that, if you did that, you would have been missing Apple. You would have been missing Twitter, or, well, maybe not Twitter. That's a poor example. But let's say Facebook and the gains we've made there. In new technologies and things you may not find boring. Actually, could be very innovative, exciting, new opportunity. So yes and no, but I've always been a defensive strategist, so I'm very happy with boring because it works great. If you buy a stock or a dividend-paying company at a certain price point today, and that company happens to be just growing, an average growth of, say, 5 or 7% a year, and that dividend keeps going up by 5 or 7% a year, 10 years from now, the dividend itself has gone up by about 50% or higher, and all you've had to do is just sit on it, and let it grow. That's a great boring way to make great money over time. So it depends on who you are and what you're trying to do. If you're a day trader, boring is not good enough. But if you are a good portfolio manager and you're looking longer term and you're trying to build up your own portfolio personally, I think boring is a good substantial base for most portfolios and exactly how they should be built.
Another financial post tip, it says, hang out with rich people.
Yes, well, I've been doing that for years. It doesn't seem to pay off, but no, I'm kidding. It does work because the wealthier do get wealthier because there's networking, there's ideas, it also makes you feel better, when people can afford to buy things around you that perhaps you can't. There is an issue with this, however, there's two things. One is if your criteria for having friends is being rich, you're going to be perceived as fairly shallow immediately. And if you don't have the money to bring to the table, it's like going to a poker game. If you don't have the money at the table, you're going to be out of the game pretty soon. So, when you go to a restaurant and you're with your 5 rich friends and they're all splitting the bill goes from being, say, $200 to $300, or say a $50 dinner bill or a $30 dinner bill with plus drinks, etc., to $200 and $250 each for the dinner bill because you had the champagne that's very rare to buy and it's worth $1,000 and everybody had the money. So, you want to throw the money around. Now you're cutting bigger checks if you're going to be splitting those costs. So it's great. It's like saying, well, the way to make money as a woman is to date and marry a rich man. Well, in that case, you're really not bringing anything to the table except yourself, and you're just selling yourself short. If you really want, it is important to hang out with intelligent, wealthy people that you can befriend for other reasons as well. In other words, you have some commonality in your life. You can arrange your world to go to events, get out to see events and meet new people. Go to free mining conference events or educational events in finance. Surround yourself with topics of money. That I agree with, because you will meet other people with similar interests, and inevitably, because the interest is how to accumulate and develop strategies to effectively make more money, that will in turn introduce you to people that are more wealthy due to their successes. And certainly follow those people and listen to them and get to know them. But don't be taken in by charlatans. There's a number of very negative, I can't name them, of course, for liability issues. I don't want to be liable for making statements out of hand. But there are charlatans out there that are putting on, say some seminar, and then they're really just leading you to buy more of their materials. They're not really educating you. They're just trying to make more sales, and they mislead you with false misrepresentation. So these things you have to be very cautious in the money world because there are as many crooks sometimes as there are very sincere and honest individuals that are trying to help you get along. Hopefully less so, but regardless, money does draw in different elements. And so consequently, I just say stay guarded, but yeah, definitely get out there and find more topics. Instead of going down necessarily to the beer fest, you might want to go to the money and RSP fest that's going on during these times of years between January and February to learn more about money management and just get to know more people that way.
And the final tip for accumulating wealth over the new year, lower your goals so you can focus more on less so that your efforts are more effective.
This one I have a problem. And this is because I'm a very big advocate for visualization. I believe that when one has a goal that you aim for the stars, you'll at least get to the moon. I think one should always try and exceed their potential. And the only way to do that is to visualize very high, lofty goals. That doesn't mean you'll get to them, and you can be realistic about that. Perhaps that's what they're saying. Just be more realistic about the achievement of very high, lofty goals. But the higher and loftier the goal, the better the ability for that individual to think outside of the box, to get outside of their traditional thinking and to break through new barriers so that they don't have to say to themselves, I come from a poor family, and so therefore I expect to be poor. That's thinking inside the box. That's giving a goal that's realistic because you've just given up. You just say, well, I don't have the money in my family. I've never gone to, say, university. Therefore, I will end up just like my family. That's just common sense, isn't it? And so you never try to get out of that. I don't agree with that. I believe that every individual has the potential to become a genius even without education. We can show that many geniuses have existed all around us without high levels of education. In fact, the education can sometimes get in their way. They're so intelligent. However, at this point, the key is that I think that people have to maintain lofty goals, and that it gives you infrastructure, it gives you a vision. And the vision of entrepreneurs is to see ahead, to see things that other people typically don't believe are attainable, and therefore, but still going after it. And even if that final vision is not attained, any step towards that vision is far more successful than just giving up and going, well, I'm going to make my life realistic. I'm just going to get a regular Joe job and be there. Why not think about becoming the leader of the Joe job company you're going to join? Why not think about working your way up? Why not think about acquiring skills to move on to another job so you can start your own business and start your own efforts in that same field that you're going to be a specialist in? Why not think outside of the box? So I disagree with it. But I think that for certain people, it is important to become more realistic about our goals. And in that, I agree. I think that there are certain goals that have to be revisited, as we do with our clients every day. Our financial goals that we start with might be too unattainable with the financial resources they have, and it may still be possible in the future, but what we do is we extend out the goal further down the line rather than having it next year. It might be 3 years out because the markets didn't perform in the investments that we expected. There might be a plan to add more money in the short term. It could be to restructure debts, which we hope to pay off in the short term, but didn't happen, so let's restructure it. And the plans can shift and change, but it doesn't mean they're not going to happen. So I don't believe in completely giving up in that regard, if that's what I'm reading.
Richard, thanks a lot for talking with us, and Happy New Year for you, your family, and all of our listeners as well.
Thank you, and the best of the new year to everyone. Take care.
My guest has been financial consultant and wealth manager Richard Knowles of Knowles & Associates. If you have any questions for Richard, you can send them to Richard K, that's the letter K, Richard K at customplanfinancial.com. You're listening to HowStreet.com radio. You can find us on Twitter at Talk Digital Net. Our YouTube channel is Talk Digital Network. Comments about the show can be sent to info@HowStreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard. Happy New Year.
Comments made on HowStreet.com radio are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any matter whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. HowStreet.com radio is a production of HowStreet Media Incorporated.